Good afternoon, everyone. We are from Group 9 to presentate about social linguistics. Our Group 9 contains of next myself. My name is Akmal Qolbun with the student number of 228.
My name is Keisha Aliya with student number 224.
My name is Nabila Azzahra. Student number is 226.
My name is Muhammad Rafliansyah with the student number of 232.
Then the first one is the brief explanation about social linguistics. What is sociolinguistics itself? Sociolinguistics is basically the study of the interaction between language and society. It looks at the ways in which language use, variation, and change are influenced by social factors, including culture, ethnic, gender, age, and economic status. Sociolinguistics also looks at how language is used in various social contexts, how it expresses social identities, and how social standards and power structure affect language usage. Language variation is a reflection of the complicated connection between social factors and communication needs, as sociolinguistics points out, to effectively navigate social identities, relationship, context, and purposes. People say the same thing in different ways to make sure that the communication is appropriate and effective within their social environment. For example, a person might say good morning in a formal context, but they use hey in an informal context. Another example is informal meeting. A person might say, I see your point, but I have a different perspective, while in casual conversation, they might say, I don't agree with that. And the last example is one might say, could you please send me the report as soon as possible? But when it comes to with a close friend, they might say, can you get me that file real quick?
According to social linguistics, social variables significantly impact how language are used and change. These factors affect how people communicate, the language they use, and how they see and are viewed by others. Here are some reasons. Many countries have unique dialect with unique phonological, grammatical, and lexical characteristics. Also, different social classes may have different linguistic usage patterns. More standard language forms are typically associated with higher socioeconomic status, and non-standard dialect may be associated with lower socioeconomic status. Due to socialization pattern, men or women frequently use informal language, with men possibly using more formal form and women typically using more polite and standard form, while older generation might use more conservative forms. Younger generation are more likely to innovate and adopt new linguistic trends. The meaning of language choice is sociolinguistic describe how people from multilingual or multidialectal groups choose a certain language, dialect, or style. Several social, culture, and contextual elements have a part in this decision, which has big impact on power dynamic, communication, and social identity.
Code switching, which involves alternating between two or more languages or dialects within a conversation or even a single utterance. People use code switching to express their identities, points out details, blend in with different social groups, and handle social situations in a variety of ways. Each person's language choice may reflect information about their social identity, including their social class, ethnicity, nationality, and gender. Choosing a language or dialect can help people feel like they belong to particular social groups by indicating their membership.
Real-life examples and theories. Bernstein's code theory. This theory investigates the effects of language use on social class structures and educational outcomes in various contexts. Students from class background that use slang words on educational purpose, they will not get the best outcome from the education itself. Teacher, could someone explain the meaning of the protagonist's conflicts within the novel's primary existential theme? Student said, yo, he's just tripping because he's all confused about life and stuff. Labov 1960, this theory focused on how social factors influence language use and how language varies systematically within communities. The pronunciation of the word car, local accent often drop the postvocalic R, which makes the pronunciation ka. Person, this ka, looking stunning.
There are five questions here. The first one is, what role does context play in social linguistic analysis? The second question is, how does language contribute to the construction of social identity? The third question is, how do regional dialects develop and change over time? The fourth question is, how can language attitudes contribute to language maintenance or shift? And the last question is, how do linguistic prejudices and stereotypes affect interpersonal relationship and social inclusion, especially in diverse communities where language diversity is prevalent? Moving on to the first question, what role does context play in social linguistic analysis? In sociolinguistic analysis, context plays a part because it gives a structure for understanding and interpreting language use. The study of sociolinguistics looks at how language and society interact and understanding how and why language separates and changes in various social contexts relies on context. And the context itself can affect on sociolinguistic analysis. There's a couple of ways which context can affect the sociolinguistic analysis. The way that speakers use language is affected by their social identities, such as their age, gender, race, and social class. Sociolinguistic analyze the ways in which linguistic practices both shape and are shaped by these identities.
One important indicator of cultural identity is language. Understanding how language choices reflect and support cultural identities and relationships is made easier with the aid of contextual analysis.
Choices are affected through the purpose of function of a conversation, such as providing instruction, expressing feeling, or negotiating. These functions and their language relation can be recognized with the help of context. Sociolinguistics are better able to explain language variation, change, and use by taking consideration of social, cultural, and even situational context.
Question number two is how does language contribute to the construction of social identity? In a number of ways, language is an essential instrument for creating social identity. First is language markers. Certain language traits such vocabulary, accent, and syntax might indicate a person's affiliation with a certain social group like an ethnic, regional, or social class group. One way to demonstrate a connection to African American identity and culture is by utilizing African American vernacular English. And the second is code switching. People frequently switch between dialects or language based on the social situation, which aids in their ability to adapt to various social rules and identities. A multilingual individual could, for instance, speak one language at home and another at work. expressing distinct aspects of their identities in each setting. And the last is style and register. A person's social standing, degree of education, or occupation can be inferred from their use of various speech styles or register, formal versus casual.
The third question is, how do regional dialect develop and change over time? The first one is geographical isolation. Physical barriers such as mountain, rivers, and distance can limit interaction between communities. This isolation leads to the development of distinct linguistic features as communities adapt their speech pattern independently. The second one is social interaction and networks. The frequency and nature of social interaction within and between communities influence dialect development. Close-knit communities with strong internal communication often develop distinct dialect. Conversely, increased interaction with other group can lead to dialect leveling, where features of different dialects blend. The third one is cultural identity and group solidarity. Dialect can serve as marker of cultural identity and group solidarity. Communities may consciously maintain or revive certain linguistic features to assert their identity and heritage. The fourth one is generational change. Language is dynamic, and each generation may introduce new linguistic feature while disgracing other. Youth culture, in particular, can be a significant driver of linguistic innovation and change. And the last one is education and literacy. The spread of literacy and formal education often promotes the use of a standard language. However, it can also highlight regional dialect as markers of local identity, leading to their preservation or adaptation.
And the fourth question is, how can language attitudes contribute to language maintenance or shift? Language attitudes significantly influence whether a language is maintained or shifts. Positive attitudes towards a language support its continued use, intergenerational transmission, and institutional support. And the fourth question, negative attitudes can lead to a language abandonment, perceived inferiority, social stigma, and reduced transmission to future generations. The balance of these attitudes in a community determines the fate of a language.
And the last question is, how do linguistic prejudice and stereotypes affect interpersonal relationship and social inclusion, especially in diverse communities where language diversity is prevalent? There are many reasons why linguistic prejudice and stereotypes can affect interpersonal relationship and social. And here are some of the reasons. The first reason is communication barriers. Communication barriers can cause misunderstanding. Assumption about people's intelligence, level of education, or social standing can result from stereotypes about accent or dialects. The second reason is trust and empathy, because in this discrimination against specific languages or dialects may delay the growth of empathy and trust in interpersonal relationship. Open communication and respect between people may be harmed by feeling of judgment or disrespect. There's also a way to reduce the stereotypes and prejudice. First is by applying educational programs that highlight the value of all languages, followed with supporting the community efforts that recognize linguistic diversity and give minority language speaker a voice. That's all about our presentation, and thank you for the attention.